24 men in history have been this far from Earth.
They're taking on the giant.
Now, Terraformation.
Human has always been intrigued by the unknown. That's why space is one of the most researched science subjects nowadays. Space has always been a fountain of inspiration for a lot of writers in the history of humanity. In order to allow us to speak about space and physics, we choose to do our work on the subject of the terraformation of Mars. This terraforming could transform Mars as an inhabitable planet and enable the solution of a planet of asylum. It could result the fact of the global warming which destroyed the Earth and its biodiversity. A lot of writers worked about space, like Jack Williamson, who was the first person to suggest the idea of the terraforming. Terraforming isn't the most important thing at the moment, but still, this idea may become very possible during the next centuries, even the case with the overpopulation of the Earth. How could the actual technical progress allow us to consider Mars as an inhabitable planet? We may start to introduce it. Terraforming is the concept of building a new Earth-like planet on another planet, like Mars or Venus. After explaining the idea and the place to do it, we're gonna explain how it works. How could this idea persist when we know that it has been first pictured in 1910? In fact, writers managed to keep this idea alive during all this time. We said before that Jack Williamson was the first one which suggests the terraformation. That's not completely true. Octave Belliard in 1910 pictured first the idea of changing the atmosphere of a planet, here the moon, to make it habitable in his novel La journée d'un Parisien au XXIe siècle. Then, Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote a famous novel of Princess of Mars, which is another story which pictured the idea of an habitable Mars. Later, in 1930, Olaf Stapledon wrote a famous novel, The Last and First Man. This artwork is important because this is the first time that the process of terraformation is clearly explained. Then, the idea became clearer. Jack Williamson wrote a book in 1942, Collision Orbit, which is even today the most interesting book about terraformation. Until the end of World War II, a lot of books about terraformation saw the sunlight, in particular the books of Isaac Asimov, a well-known science fiction author, and Arthur C. Clarke, respectively The Martian Way and The Son of Mars. Carl Sagan, in 1994, wrote a famous book, Pale Blue Dot. In this book, he details a human vision for the future, but also details a lot about terraformation. This is this book which made the idea of terraformation from the state of dream to the state of possible idea. But why did we choose Mars? In fact, why not another planet? Mars is the closest planet to Earth, approximately 55.7 million kilometers. This planet is simply the easiest one for us to reach. With our actual technical progress, the travel will take 9 months. Thanks to the probe spirit and phoenix, the ground's composition of Mars is clear, and we can see similitude with the Earth, including the iron, the calcium, the potassium, and oxygen. So, like the composition is similar as Earth, every construction will be simplified by this material that already exists to build every infrastructure welcoming the life. Actually, in 2003, the temperatures measurement and thermal inertia made by the instrument THEMIS of Mars Odyssey demonstrate for the first time the South Ice Cap. Like the North Ice Cap was composed in majority of water, it's an extraordinary opportunity because water's presence simplifies the process of terraforming. There are many similitudes between Mars and the Earth. First, the rotation period of the two planets are almost the same. Their obliquity are approximately the same too. But the eccentricity of its orbit is a little bit higher, which makes the density and the during of the seasons very uneven in the Martian years. In the past, Mars was maybe an Earth-like planet. We know that the composition and the orbit are almost the same. It is enough similar to a planet. Scientists say it may indicate that at some point there could have been or could be life on Mars. In the past, Mars had a dense and thicker atmosphere, and so a large water scarcity. Terraforming of Mars will be long. It contains some steps which we're going to explain. The first step of the terraforming is the increase of the temperature in the surface of Mars. For this, scientists thought about some way to do it. Today, the most developed concept is the construction of a mirror of 125 km of diameter. This mirror will weigh 200,000 tons and will be extremely fine, less than half a centimeter. It should increase the temperature of Mars thanks to the way of the Sun, starting with the pole. Another solution is the introduction of CO2 on Mars to warm up the different state of the atmosphere. The CFC, which means chlorofluorocarbons, is a greenhouse gas with approximately the same properties as the CO2, except that it warms up 10,000 times more. Unfortunately, this molecule contains a flaw. In fact, the CFC destroys an eventual ozone layer, and one of the aims is to create one. It's why the scientists thought another one without this default, the octofluoropropane. The octofluoropropane will be able to warm up the temperature of Mars without having effect on the ozone layer. With different ways, we are allowed to increase the temperature of Mars' atmosphere. When it will increase to 20 degrees, more than the departure temperature, the CO2 and gases will be able to continue the greenhouse. Other scientists talked about throwing asteroids on Mars to warm up the atmosphere and create some craters to accommodate water, but they of course don't know how to throw this asteroid. Moreover, this experiment must create toxic gases during the impact. The chemical composition of the atmosphere must change. When we spoke about the planet Mars, we told previously that the higher temperature on Mars allowed the ice under the floor and the polar cap to melt, thanks to the mirror or the octofluoropropane. The planet will be wet, and the next step could follow. An appropriate atmosphere will be able to bear a form of microorganisms like cyanobacteria, which is going to change the composition of this atmosphere thanks to the photosynthesis. In fact, they will transform most of the CO2 in O2 in order to perform the atmosphere. Indeed, the O2 will react with the ozone present in the air and create an ozone layer which will be able to stop the UV. And then, finally, the end of the terraformation, an inhabitable planet. Little algae will gradually cover the whole planet around the sea, already formed after a lot of years. Some bigger vegetate will replace algae, until create an inhabitable atmosphere. Then we'll make our Mars our second planet. Until many years, humanity searched a solution of the global warming of the Earth. If some scientists are looking for a way to repair a planet, some others thought to colonize another planet, more precisely Mars. For that, they imagined the terraformation, an idea which grew up with writers and scientist people. From a fantastic form, it became a real subject of discussion and reflection. By the way of creating a private sun from Mars, building a giant mirror, or even letting octofluoropropane in its atmosphere, we know that this is prodigy possible. Thanks also to the technical progress. Unfortunately, this terraformation can meet some problems. First, the price of an enormous scientist progress is very problematic, and all of the countries of the world will have to participate in this project. Then, a lot of philosophers asked for an environment right. In fact, they say that humanity can't give Earth the right to colonize another planet, not only because preserving the variety of the environment, also because of the fact that if humans destroy the planet, they are able to destroy another.